Good morning, everyone. This is Penny Mabee, the facilitator for the Great Basin Landscape Conservation Cooperative. I'm speaking to you from Seattle, Washington. We have speakers for this webinar from all around the Great Basin region. I've heard a number of you coming on the line as we've been on early, and I appreciate that. I expect we'll have a number of more people joining us. We had over more than 100 people registered for this webinar, so I think it would take up half the webinar to do introductions, so I'm just going to, we'll send out a list of all the participants afterwards so that everybody will know who else was on the line. But I'd like to welcome all of you to this webinar. We're really happy to have you here. We're doing this webinar as a kickoff to kind of an innovative virtual public forum that we're hosting. And so this webinar is going to get you oriented to the Great Basin LCC, the Landscape Conservation Cooperative, as well as to this public forum that is opening. What we'll do on this webinar today is the welcome that I'm doing and that Todd Hopkins, the Great Basin LCC Science Coordinator, will do here in a moment. Then you're going to hear from some of the members of the Great Basin Conservation Community about why they're involved in the Great Basin LCC. Then we'll get you oriented to the online forum and talk about what you can do on the forum, why we're doing it, and how your feedback will be used. Then we'll give you some breadcrumbs for how to engage in the forum, how to give feedback, and explain some live sessions that we're going to be doing. So that's what we're going to be accomplishing on this 1-hour webinar. With that, let me just orient you to the GoToWebinar software. You should have, if you've joined the webinar, you should have a screen in front of you that says welcome. And you should also have a little navigation panel on the right. You have a couple of opportunities to engage with us through this webinar. One is that you can raise your hand. There's a little button you can click with a little hand on it, and if you click that button, it signifies to us that your hand is up and we can call on you. The other thing that you have is a chat box. You can enter a chat at any time and it will come to us. And if you have a question, you can put it in that chat and we will get to it as quickly as we can. So you can either raise your hand and we'll call on you, or you can enter a chat into the chat box and it will come directly to us. How about one or two of you raise your hand now just for practice? I want to see, make sure there's some folks out there. And let's see here. Who's got their hand up? Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Leanna and Louisa and Miriam. Excellent. Ryan, Todd, excellent. Okay, you can all, and Sue, you can all put your hands back down. Perfect. So now that's how that mechanism works, and we'll be watching for that. And you see, with that, I think what I would like to do is ask you to, if you haven't already, please mute your phones so that we don't hear the competing noise from all of our various backgrounds that are happening while we're doing this webinar. And then if we call on you, we'll ask you and remind you to unmute your phone. And with that, I'd like to ask Todd Hopkins, the Science Coordinator for the Great Basin Landscape Conservation Cooperative, to give us some opening remarks. Todd, are you on this morning?
Good morning, Penny and everyone else. I am. I'm very excited to be here. This is our first public forum. It's an annual event as part of our charter. We're having an open house where we can present today a little bit about our science strategy. We have some openings on our steering committee, and we'd like some recommendations from the greater community. And we are designing a new website with some different functionality, and we could use your input. Hopefully you'll be one of the users for the website. So, good morning, everybody. Penny, I think we're going to go right into the partner overview about why they're involved with the LCC. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Landscape Conservation Cooperatives, we are a national network of 22 landscape conservation cooperatives. We cover the entire United States, parts of Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, and many of the Pacific islands. The Pacific is a very, very large conservation cooperative. We've been up the Great Basin for about 3 years now, and so we're just getting our feet going and our strategic planning in the middle, basically, and that's one of the reasons we have a public forum today, is to get some comments from you before we proceed too far down the road. Next slide. So, folks that don't know about where we are, this is the geography. This was designed by a joint committee of USGS, Fish and Wildlife Service, and other federal and state agencies. We basically have 5 states. We cover most of Nevada, parts of Idaho, Utah, Oregon, and eastern California as our geography. The mission for the Great Basin LCC is to really help with climate adaptation and understanding the drivers of climate, what that does to cultural and natural resource values, and how to create adaptation planning and conservation designs to adapt to those changes on the landscape. Slide. Okay, so I skipped ahead a little bit, but we're back on track here. So we have 3 of our partners. We've asked several people we work with to talk about why they're involved with the Great Basin LCC. Some of you may or may not be familiar with us, so we thought we'd let them tell you in their own words. And I'm going to let them do their own introduction. The first speaker we have is Dr. Tamara Wall. She's with the Desert Research Institute here in Reno, Nevada, where I'm also based. Tamara, take it away.
Thanks, Todd. If I could go ahead and have my slide. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. So I was thinking about this over the weekend of why am I involved with the Great Basin Landscape Conservation Cooperative in particular. And so a little bit of background. So I am a faculty member at the Desert Research Institute, which is part of the Nevada System of Higher Education. I also am a part of the Western Regional Climate Center, which is there are regional climate centers covering the United States. The Western Regional Climate Center is the largest one and covers all 11 western states, Alaska, and Hawaii. I'm also involved with the California-Nevada Climate Applications Project, which in some ways does similar work to the Great Basin LCC, but is also very different. But we do work with stakeholders, which is very similar to the Great Basin LCC. But what I'd like to focus on is how the Great Basin LCC is different than the work I do with either the Western Regional Climate Center or the California-Nevada Applications Project. Go ahead to the next slide. And that is simply, I think that the Great Basin LCC has a very unique role in the Great Basin. They work directly with stakeholders to identify research needs and management concerns. And also, if you go ahead to the next slide, to develop usable science. And by usable science, what I mean is that they're very focused on not only identifying what those research needs are from managers and other people involved in natural resource management, but trying to figure out then how to get those research needs met or those management concerns met. And so they're a really great example of what I would call a boundary organization, building bridges between these 2 different groups and coordinating those groups. And if you go ahead to the next slide. And I think that one of the important things that they do is they're building a long-term series, a long-term network of information and relationships in the region. And they do a great job of leveraging these resources and kind of finding mutually beneficial relationships. So one of the really satisfying things for me working with the Great Basin LCC has really seen how some of the research that we do here at CNAP and DRI and the Western Regional Climate Center can really be linked up to management concerns and needs in the Great Basin. And, it's a win-win situation for everybody in that we get to do research that is very much applied research and directly related to those management needs. One of the other important things that the Great Basin LCCs and the LCCs overall across the United States can do that is often very difficult for other agencies and organizations to do is to build those networks and then maintain them. Maintaining those networks is really important, and it's part of their mandate to do that, and they're I think I would say one of the only entities that is the case. And maintaining those networks is hard work, and that's one of the reasons why I think that they're having this public forum and why it's a part of their charter is to do exactly that. One of the other really satisfying reasons I find working with the Great Basin LCC is kind of linked to a story about Todd from a couple of years ago when he first moved here to take up his role as the science coordinator. And we were kind of sitting around talking about this idea of adaptation for climate change and what are management needs. And he made this comment that has always stuck with me ever since then about he was really motivated to actually start trying things on the ground, to try different management actions and actually see how they worked and what didn't work, and really moving the Great Basin LCC forward in that direction of actually just really making a difference on the ground in the Great Basin. And I think that over the past 3 years that the Great Basin LCC has made enormous strides in doing that, and I think they're a really valuable resource for everybody who is working in the Great Basin region at natural resource management, research, or concerns. And that's all I have.
Thanks very much, Tamara. I appreciate that. In your own words, kind of telling everybody what it is you work with us for. Our next speaker is Dr. Maureen McCarthy, and she's with the University of Nevada, Reno Center for the Environment. Maureen, your turn.
Great, thanks. So what I was going to do is complementing on with what Tamara just talked about, just give a little bit of an insight as to why the LCC provides an opportunity for us at the University of Nevada, Reno and other institutions to be able to link together to look at problems that are shared across the entire Great Basin. So I'll just give you a little bit of a hint, a little overview of some of the things we're interested in. Next slide, please. So the Academy for the Environment, I'm the director of the Academy for the Environment, which is dedicated to transdisciplinary research at UNR and with our partner institutions wherever they are. A lot of these programs are focused explicitly on Great Basin. So one of the things that we do through the Academy is I'm also the director of the Great Basin Cooperative Ecosystem Studies Unit, which is an opportunity and a partnership between the federal agencies and the non-federal agencies to really streamline and help facilitate getting targeted research in support of management done effectively and efficiently. And so as you can see, we cover, the Great Basin states. We have 8 federal agencies, 14 universities, and an NGO that are part of this. And we work with all the universities across the Great Basin and with the federal agencies to be able to really help and support these targeted research programs. The next thing that we do that the Academy is very involved in is the Great Basin Consortium. So one of the things that we found is that there were lots of organizations working in the Great Basin, including the Landscape Conservation Cooperative, the CEFU, and other organizations. And we wanted an opportunity to bring them all together so that they could collectively understand what the other is doing, so that we can share best practices, essentially, on science delivery for management. And one of the things that we do as part of that, which many of you may be aware of, is sponsor the Great Basin Consortium Conference annually, which is this year in Boise. So that's an opportunity where the Landscape Conservation Cooperative plays a huge role. And we have the opportunity to not only leverage what LCC does, but to bring that in the context of the other organizations, including the climate science centers and others. So next slide, please. And then the other thing that the Academy for the Environment does is really promote research, transdisciplinary research across the Great Basin in lots of different areas. So this just highlights some of the research programs that we're involved in, and it shows you the partnerships expand across the Great Basin, from Walker Basin to Tahoe, a new project called Water for the Seasons, which is looking at water sustainability and climate, which is an opportunity for us to bring research that leverages and augments and in lots of cases helps the LCC research program. And then we have a new program that's just about to get started on tribal agriculture across all the tribal lands in the Great Basin. Again, these are opportunities where being part of the LCC allows us to develop those relationships, to strengthen the research base, and to build more targeted science in support of management decision making. So that's my last slide describing what the Academy does. There's a couple other slides which they can post on the after this presentation that talks about the background for the Academy for the Environment, and also gives a little bit more detail into the Great Basin Consortium and the CEFU if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Our next partner speaker is Dr. Erica Fleischman. She's with the John Muir Center for the Environment at UC Davis. Erica?
Thanks very much, Todd. It's a real pleasure to be able to participate in the opening of the forum. I've worked in the Great Basin since the early 90s, first with the Nevada Biodiversity Initiative, then with the Great Basin Ecosystem Management Project, and over the years with a large number of research management partnerships, most of which were spearheaded by the Reno Laboratory of the Rocky Mountain Research Station with the USDA Forest Service. And over the years, there have been a lot of programs with goals that are quite similar to those of the Great Basin LCC. I think Maureen's discussion of the Great Basin Consortium is an illustration of that. And most of us day to day are collaborating quite a bit. As I said, there are a lot of research management partnerships. There are a lot of agency partnerships. But the Great Basin LCC, I think, has both been extremely successful.
Hi, this is Matt calling back.
Has been given many more resources than some of the other programs to actually implement the types of coordination and interactions that are necessary to make all of these things happen over large areas and over a long period of time. So it's had the resources, and it's been able to, over just the past 3 years, really capitalize on those resources and to be able to convene a lot of the other groups that are all working towards similar goals. When Todd asked me to talk about why I was involved with the Great Basin LCC, at first I misread his email and read it as, why are you involved in the Great Basin? And to me, it's really difficult to separate some of these things. I think that the Great Basin as a whole, as all of us know, it's land rich and people poor. And for those of you that have a background in ecology, it's almost like an Ali effect of collaboration. If you have people that want to interact, but they're spread across a very large area, it's hard to find each other. And if we can better find each other, we can better raise our individual fitness and our collective fitness. There are some opportunities in the Great Basin that really are not present across the rest of the country and even across the rest of the Intermountain West. So if you look at these images of what's being called the human footprint, which is essentially the locations where people are active across the landscape, there are opportunities in the Great Basin that aren't present in other areas. And to me, this is extremely encouraging, even if you consider the management challenges that we face in the Great Basin. Organisms are a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. They have a lot of adaptive capacity, and it's much easier for an organism to cross even a cheatgrass monoculture than it is for an organism to cross something like the LA Basin. If I could have the next slide, please. There's a lot of debate about what people want from the Great Basin and the extent to which it can be achieved. And there are a lot of ways, as this slide illustrates, to try to get to consensus on what the objectives for an ecosystem are, or the objectives for a species, or what have you, and what's the most productive way to do it. And I think that the Great Basin LCC, again, within just a couple of years, has been doing an incredible job of bringing that together. If it's getting people to sit around a table and say, what are our mutual objectives? How do we put together a team and assemble information that is going to be considered credible to everyone, to saying how can we do active adaptive management over a topic that is already more or less agreed on. I think that the Great Basin LCC is very well positioned to try to bring together objective information, to test conventional wisdom, and to try to separate politics from information. If I could have the next slide. The Great Basin a lot of times doesn't make headlines as being a sexy place, but I don't think that matters to those of us that live here. I think we all find it really important to us in our own way, and that's regardless of whether we are farming or ranching or charged with management or studying resources in the Great Basin. It's an incredible system to all of us, and there are a lot of opportunities to better figure out how we can get all of these different things from the landscape, how it works. So I think of the Great Basin as being our home, and the LCC as being a way for our community to come together to meet mutual objectives. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Erica.
All right. Thank you so much to our three speakers. We really appreciate that. The next thing that we would like to do is introduce Sue Phillips with the USGS. Sue is the chair of the leadership for the LCC Steering Committee, and she's going to give us a few words about the purpose of the forum. Sue, are you on?
I am. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Sue Phillips. I'm with the USGS Forest and Rangeland Ecosystem Science Center. I'm based out of Corvallis, Oregon, but a lot of what I do is based out of Boise, Idaho. Thank you all for being here. I was so pleased to hear that we had over 100 people sign up for this. And I wish I could see your names and hear who you are, because I'm hoping it's a diverse array. I figured it's kind of got to be, especially what Erica just described about us being people poor. And I imagine there's folks spread out all over the region. What you're here for today is to help to update and engage the work of the LCC. We need the entire conservation community involved in this. Although the LCC is mainly guided by a steering committee, and that steering committee is designed to capture an array of people. It's got NGOs, it's got industry, it's got local government, it's got federal and state government, it's got universities. It's meant to get the whole get representation from everyone who's operating as part of the conservation community in the basin. But it really relies on these partner forums to reach out and get the really broad sweep. The goal here today is to give you guys an opportunity to advise the steering committee, to give a loose structure to engage all of the conservation practitioners that we can wrap our arms around. Everybody shares in these large landscape conservation challenges in this region.
Excuse me, I'm going to jump in, Sue. Yeah. Could everybody please mute your phones? We're getting some feedback. We're getting some interference. It's making it difficult to hear Sue. So if you haven't done so, please be sure and put your phone on mute, and *6 should do that for you. Okay, go ahead, Sue. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was about ready to do the same thing. About ready to interrupt myself. So what we want your help in doing is to help us identify priority conservation information and scientific needs. And we want to hear about specific conservation needs that you guys see in what you do every day that will inform and support adaptive management approach to landscape conservation in this huge area. This year, I think Todd mentioned, other things we're going to come at you for are recommendations of potential new NGO steering committee members. We've had some turnover and some change, and the steering committee is not as big as it needs to be right now, so we'll get some input from you on that, and maybe some volunteers amongst you. And then we'll also be previewing the new LCC website, Great Basin LCC website, and asking for your feedback. There will be an opportunity to review and to provide inputs on the STEC priorities, the science and traditional ecological knowledge, And Raul Morales from the BLM in Nevada and Todd Hopkins will talk about that next. I think that's it. Penny, did I cover it all?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much, Sue. One thing that I'm going to talk about briefly before we get into the strategy, I want to talk about how feedback will be used regarding the steering committee membership. So one of the things that, as Sue referenced, the LCC founders, as people came together to put this LCC together, they really wanted this to be a conservation community-driven organization. And so they put this notion of a forum in place. And the forum was one of the roles of the forum is to provide input to the steering committee on non-governmental organizational representatives. So that's part of what we'll be doing through this forum. And what we'll be doing is asking, and I'll explain how in a little bit, but we'll be asking you for suggestions, and then the steering committee will consider all of those suggestions. Look at how those match up with the characteristics that are laid out in the charter, and then provide formal invitations to these suggested organizations and industry representatives, and then we'll affirm the membership by the steering committee. And membership is for I think a 3-year term. So the suggestions that are made through the public forum, not this webinar, but where we're going to steer you to on the public forum, will definitely lead the steering committee to how to fill the vacancies in their membership. So that's the first piece of feedback we're going to be seeking from you. And as you can see here, there are, and as Sue referenced again, there are already a number of organizations represented on the steering committee, but there is room for more, and the steering committee really wants to fill the vacancies, particularly in the non-governmental organizational category. The next thing that we will be seeking feedback on through the forum is a new website that's being designed for the LCC. Currently, the Great Basin LCC website is hosted on the BLM's mother site. And so a new website that will be independent of that is being designed. And the web development team really wanted to make sure, and the steering committee want to make sure that this website serves the partnership and the partners out in the conservation community that are all part of this LCC, this whole conservation cooperative. And so as you go to the public forum, you'll find there will be a section on the website. You'll get to look at some snapshots of what the design team is currently thinking that the website should look like and what aspects it should have on it, what components it should have, and you'll be able to give some feedback via a survey about the website and the way it's being constructed and particularly what its content will be. So the web development team will then take all that input and try and make some sense out of it and put it in and incorporate it as much as possible. So those are two of the areas that we'll be seeking feedback on and how your feedback will be used. The third, I'm going to turn over to Raul Morales from BLM to talk, and he's the chair of the Science and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Working Group, and he's going to talk about how your feedback will be used to inform the strategy that's being developed. Raul?
Yes, thank you very much, Penny. And hopefully with all those beeps we were hearing, there's still folks left on the call here. I think someone had us on something that was beeping a lot here on our end. So anyway, again, my name is Raul Morales. I am the Deputy State Director for Resources, Lands, and Planning for the Nevada State Office and the chair of their STEC, Science and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Working Group. And I just wanted to say that what I'm about ready to talk about is our committee has been working feverishly over the past year on this, and now we're really getting ready to open it up to the rest of the folks to provide us some feedback that I'll go over here in just a second. The Great Basin LCC Steering Committee has engaged this working group in 2014 to develop a science strategic plan focused on resources affected by climate change, that will identify priorities to direct the LCC investments and activities over the next 5 years. And as part of our forum in Boise, we'll be sharing the background on this strategic planning process and our work to date. We're also going to solicit feedback on a draft priorities document and thoughts on a plan implementation. And so there are a series of questions that are on the interactive online tool that I understand just went live as of this morning that we would really like folks who are interested to take a look at and provide us answers on what you think. Those questions include, what are your top priorities, and are there any gaps in our preliminary list that we've identified to date? What are your suggestions for successful plan implementation? What criteria should we consider in selecting our annual priorities? How should we balance our work between small and large projects? What information will ensure quality proposals for funding? And then what other activities? I think we got that problem again, Penny.
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry, Raul. I'd like to ask everybody that's on the conference call right now, particularly the person who seems to be making breakfast, if you would please put your phone on mute because we're hearing everything. So if you have not put your phone on mute and you're on this call now, please do so and improve everybody else's experience. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Raul.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. And then the last question we're looking at is what activities beyond funding research can the LCC engage in to advance landscape conservation in the Great Basin? So really would encourage folks to get onto that online tool, like I said, that just went live this morning, and take a look at it and really provide us some of your feedback because we would really appreciate it. I think what we've come up with so far looks really pretty good, and I appreciate the group's work on this to date, and I think we have an opportunity to really get additional feedback that just further strengthen where we want to go with this group here. Also, I just want to say the STEC Working Group will be reviewing the ideas generated through the forum and incorporating them as they further develop the strategic science plan over our next 3 months so that when we do get to Boise in February, we will have a draft plan for the steering committee to review. I can say the steering committee is excited to have a product that we can use to support strategic action. And then finally, I just want to thank everyone in advance for your time and sharing your ideas on this online tool that will make our plan as focused and relevant as possible. That's it, Penny.
Thank you so much, Raul. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So now we've talked about this forum a number of times, and I'm sure many of you are wondering what the heck is this public forum that we're talking about. So here's the URL for it. It's and we sent it out this morning. It's greatbasinlcc.publicmeeting.org. And it's going to be live. You can visit it on your own as many times as you want now through the end of Friday at midnight, although I don't know which one of us is going to be here at midnight to hit the off button, but one of us will. And so it is a forum that you can come and go to as you please on your own convenience and provide input on those 3 major topics that you've just heard about. So let me give you a demonstration of what this forum that we're talking about is actually going to look like. And I'm going to go to the forum right now. This is what you will see when you follow that greatbasinlcc.publicmeeting.org link. And it is organized like, I'm sure many of you have attended open houses along the way. It is organized like an open house. And each one of these tabs up here is like a station you can visit. And we think it would be most useful if you visit them in order, but as you come back, if you at once and you want to come back, you may want to navigate around and go to different things. So I'll show you. This is your opening tab. When you come into the sign-in table at a public meeting, this is what you usually get is some kind of a welcome. Then if you would go to the next station, you'll get an overview of the Great Basin LCC, much of what you heard about this morning. And more if you want to dive a little deeper into what the LCC has been doing in the past, what they're doing now. And then if you're particularly interested in the projects that the LCC, the research projects the LCC has funded, Each of these little snapshots is live, and you can open it up and get a quick snapshot of each project that the LCC has funded by itself or in partnership with others. So that helps you understand what the LCC has been up to. I always do that. And I can't see it. Click the black. Okay. I have to get my folks to tell me how to maneuver through here because I always click the wrong button. And then when we start to ask for your input at this forum, the first thing we're going to ask for your input on is the science and traditional ecological knowledge strategy that Raul talked about. And so here's some introduction to that. What have they been doing? What is the strategy going to include? How did they get to where they are, the working group? How did they get to where they are right now? And they have some proposed priority topics. And so then as you navigate through, you'll be able to go on to priorities, and then how do you give your feedback? Well, what we want you to do, and we explain it here, but what you can do is come over here and click on this, and it will take you to a different online tool, a meeting sphere session. This is an interactive session. You can sign in here, and I'll show you by signing in so you can see what we're talking about, and enter the session. And when you enter the session, it will take you to the questions that we are asking you to think about and respond to. Of course, there's all this you have to wait for, but so here's the session that you're invited. Join the activity. You're going to go in and talk about priority topics. So you'll join that session. And they're asking you what to do here. Here's your instructions. And say, okay. And then there are two questions here that the working group would like you to respond to. And you can respond to either one of these by clicking on the bubble. We call it a bubble. Here's the question. What's missing? What high priority needs are not identified in the document? And earlier in the forum, there was a link to the document, so you can have been looking at the document. And then you can add your response just by clicking down here, and I think it is perfect. I'll just say that, and I click my little check mark, and there is my comment, and you know who said it. Then if you're really, if you perhaps don't necessarily agree with me, or you really want to add on or amplify something that I said, you can select my statement, write another one down here, and hopefully these will be more thoughtful than my comments are here. And then you can see that Penny just responded to Penny and said, no, I disagree. And so there can be comments on comments, or you can come down and put a new comment in here with a new thought. So that's how these dialogue bubbles work. And I'm going to close this one and show you that this one, if you went in here, is exactly the same kind of thing. You put your response in down here. It shows up here. When someone else comes in, they can either put in a new thought or they can respond to your thought. And so there can be sort of an interactive session. One of the things people always ask me about is, what are these little numbers, the 2/0? What this is telling you is what's in the dialogue bubble. And it's telling me that there are two comments in there, and the 0 says, I've already read both of them. If someone else had gone in and put in a new comment, there would be a number 1 there, and then I would know, oh, there's something I haven't read, and I could go back and read it and respond if I wanted to. So you'll see here, now there's there's an unread comment in there. Somebody put something in, so yay, this is excellent. So now I have my choice. Thank you, Valda. I have my choice of either responding to what Valda said, or I can just click away from that and put my own thought in there. So that's exactly how this meeting sphere session will work. Let me take you back to, and if you have any questions about that at any time, throw something in the chat box, or feel free to contact us at info@greatbasinlcc.org, and we'll be monitoring this forum all week as it's live. So that is how the meeting sphere session works. I did want to tell you that there are a couple of different meeting sphere sessions. So they will open in separate tabs. So as you go, I guess I should go back to the forum. As you go back to the forum, let me back up over here. Oh, see, I have to do it. I forgot. I'm not even following my own instructions. And go back up to the tab for the forum. Then you can continue on and go on through. Then the working group has there's another meeting sphere session here with a lot more questions for you to answer about implementing the strategic plan. Then the second topic we ask you about is the steering committee membership. These are the current members, non-government organization and private community representatives, and you'll go into a meeting sphere session where you can make suggestions of other groups, other organizations that should be represented. And then the third area where we're asking you for input is the website, the new website. These are screenshots of the design, the current design of the new website. This is the framework, and then here's the home page. Each of these pops open, and you can close it by going down to the bottom X, and it takes you right back to the forum. So you can look these things over, and then it will give you the opportunity to take a survey about the website. So those are the three areas where we're looking for input on the STEC strategy, both the priorities and the implementation, steering committee membership, and looking over the website pages and a survey on the website. And then, of course, you can finish up. And then here is the staff for the LCC, Todd, who you've been hearing from this morning. There's his email if you want to get in touch with him, and Matt Germino, who is the research ecologist for the LCC from USGS. So that is how the public forum will work. And so my reminder to you is that it is open now. This is the URL you use to go to it. You can visit it once, twice, or 30 times if you wish. You can go back and forth between the tabs. You can check back in and see what other people are saying, so forth and so on. So we're very excited to have people participating in this forum. It's something new that we're trying, and it's a way to get really good input to the steering committee and to the STEC working group as they work on providing a forward path for the LCC. One other opportunity that we're offering is we're having 3 live sessions if you really want to talk with folks, one for each of the areas that we're seeking input on. So tomorrow, from 1 to 2 Pacific time, you can call in to talking about the steering committee membership. We'll have a couple of us on the phone ready to talk about steering committee membership, be able to answer any questions you have, provide any insight that you want. Then the same thing on Wednesday, same time, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. We'll have folks from the working group, the Science and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Working Group, on the phone, and you can check in with them and have a conversation or ask questions or get clarification. And then on Thursday, it just follows that we'll have a session, same time, 1 to 2, on the website. So we'll have somebody from our web development team, we'll have some staff from the Great Basin LCC, and we'll be able to talk with you about the website if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask or just want to have a conversation. So there will be somebody you can talk with on each of those calls. Steering committee membership on Tuesday, STEC on Wednesday, and the new website on Thursday. All of those calls will use the same conference call line, and that's the same one that you used today to call into this webinar. So that is the next thing, that the other way that we are offering additional opportunities for input into the work of the Great Basin LCC. So I've been talking a lot. We've shared a fair bit with you. I just wanted to look really quickly and see if we have any questions from anyone, and give you the opportunity now. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Maureen, did you have a question for us?
No, my apologies. My hand keeps going up without my paying attention. Sorry.
Well, those darn hands, you just can't control them, I tell you. Sometimes that gets weird. Anybody have any questions about the online forum or anything about the Great Basin LCC that we can answer for you? We just wanted to make sure that everybody had a good had a good introduction to this new online forum. I'm scrolling here to see if I see any hands. Whoops. I don't. Let's see. Pat, did you have a question? Pat Lineback?
Oh, I noticed you were talking about that URL with .org, and it looks to me like it's .info rather than .org. So unless I'm missing something, it looked like for the URL to get to the forum is different from what you were saying. But maybe that's
it should be Let's see. It should be, if we said .org, it should be .info. The website is .org, and no, you're right. This should be .info. Oh, thanks for catching that. Really appreciate that. Yeah, this should be .info. Okay, excellent. Anybody else have any questions or great observations like that? Okay, well, we're going to be respectful of your time and let you go a little early. If you have any questions about us, about the webinar or the online forum, feel free to let us know. And thanks for attending our webinar this morning. We hope to see you on the forum.